Hey everybody, how are you? I hope that you're having a wonderful day. I know I am, and I'm actually excited to share with you today this fantastic PowerPoint on memorization. So before I get going, I want you to go get the PowerPoint from Canvas and open it up and have it open because it's going to be helpful to you while you're going through this lecture to understand kind of what I'm talking about, because I'm going to be talking about the PowerPoint, and if you don't have it, you're going to be like, what is she talking about? So go on, get the PowerPoint and come on back. It should be just in Canvas right where you found this video. And I'm just going to have some water while I'm waiting. Oh, you're back. Okay. Well, hey, nice to see you today. You got your PowerPoint ready? Okay, cool. So you'll see that it starts out with a little freeway sign that says memory techniques. Memory techniques. That's what we're doing today. So I love sharing this lecture with my students because I feel like this is a turning point for so many students who didn't realize that they should be memorizing, 100% memorizing information for their test and not just skimming over it really fast. Because a lot of students in the past maybe felt like just skimming it over really quick before the test was going to get them a good grade. And the truth is, like, if you already know the information, like you've taken the class before and you know it, then maybe that is all you need to do. But if this is new information to you and you have never seen it before and it's a subject that you don't know anything about, you need to memorize the material that your teacher presents to you, whether it's in lecture or from the reading or both. Because some teachers are like, I only really test off of the book, and the lectures aren't really going to be on the test. And if that's the case, then cool. But most teachers, it's like both. There's lecture and there's a book, and you need to know both things. And the same goes for this class too. You need to know the information from the reading, and you also need to know the information from lectures. So for some of you guys who don't watch the lectures, maybe you're not watching this now, and I'm just speaking to a bunch of people that I don't need to, but yeah, if you don't watch the lectures, you're not going to get all the information you need from the course. So if you're here, you're doing good. Proud of you. Okay, so let's move on to the beginning, which is relax. So I could spend a lot of time talking about why relaxation is so important for memorization. I could do a whole lecture on that topic, but since I don't want to make this forever long, I just want to tell you that if you are someone who's prone to anxiety or you get nervous or anxious about stuff, then it is preventing your ability to memorize information. So I would say if you think you have maybe an undiagnosed anxiety disorder or something, and this is something that's constantly bothering you, causing you problems, why not go see a psychiatrist and just see if there's something that they can do to help you. That is if you have actual anxiety disorder. If you just get anxious from time to time and it's test related, that kind of stuff, you probably don't need to do that. You just need to work on how you study. So the number one reason why people are so anxious about tests and about studying is because they're not doing it. So or maybe they're leaving it to the last minute. So if you're leaving your studying to the last minute or the night before, or even just the 2 nights before the test, then I can see why you might be a little stressed out, because it's pretty tough to memorize a whole semester's worth of information in 1 or 2 days. It's too much information at once for your brain. Your brain does not do good with too much information at once. It has to sort through everything. It has to decide what's the most important. So really you only memorize, or you really only remember, the first and last portions of what you study. So if you study for like 3 hours the night before a test, your brain is going to remember the very beginning of what you studied and the very end, and you wasted a few hours in between there. Yeah. And if you think you can memorize a big chunk of information at once like that, you're wrong. There's very few people who can memorize that amount of information in just a few hours. And so if you're studying at the last minute, you are not getting the most out of your classes. Now, you guys are paying for classes too. So if you're paying and you're not actually trying to learn the information, what are you paying for? Are you paying for just a piece of paper that says you graduated? Because a lot of people do this. They will go to school, they'll study only at the last minute, and then maybe they'll get a passing grade in the class because they'll study for a few hours before the test, take the test, pass the test, And then all the information will just go right out. And it's okay though, because they're ready for the next test because they're just going to memorize that information. And then that information is going to go out of their brain. So someone could foreseeably get straight A's in college and then not have anything to show for the time that they were there, meaning they actually don't know any of the information that they're supposed to know because they just kind of shoved stuff in their brain really fast and then took the test and then let it all go out. So if anybody asks them any questions about that stuff, or if their job requires them to know basic math or English or whatever that they assume you had learned in school, you may not be able to perform those tasks. So even though a college degree can get you a job or get you in the door, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to keep that job. So if you're here in school, then I would assume you would want to get the most out of school by actually learning the information. So memorization is the way to learn all the stuff so you actually have it and you can use it anytime you want, even after you're graduated. But if it never got in there in the first place, you're not going to be able to get it back out. Because I don't know if you guys know how memory works, but there's a working memory, there's a short-term memory, and there's a long-term memory. Your working memory is like just a few seconds. So just like if you're memorizing a phone number to just dial it, and then as soon as you dial it, it's out of your memory. That's working memory. Short-term memory is stuff that you need to kind of keep on at the top of your mind for the next few days. So if you're doing your time management planning, like planning out your week and stuff in your head only and not writing it down, then that's your short-term memory that's kind of at work there. Long-term memory is stuff that your brain has decided that you need to know for the long haul. And to get stuff from short-term memory into long-term memory, your brain has to decide that it's important information. Now, you can tell it, brain, this is important information. I need you to memorize this. And that'll help you, definitely. It'll make it more likely that you're going to be able to do that. Having a positive attitude about the information you're about to learn is also something that will help your memory, because your brain will go like, oh, she's really excited about this. It must be super important. So if you're going to come into class with like a really bad attitude, like, this sucks, I don't want to be here. And I mean, I've even said stuff like that when I was in school. I was like, man, I don't want to go to biology today. Biology sucks. And it's like, biology doesn't suck. It's just like, I don't really feel like going today. So, but when I say that to my brain's like, cool, biology sucks. You don't care about it? Awesome. We don't have to memorize this ever. Thanks, Amy. So if I say stuff like that to myself, even if I don't mean it, sometimes my brain like doesn't know that, and it just kind of goes with whatever I'm actually thinking or saying about that thing. So if I'm telling people around me like, oh, school's stupid, then my brain's like, oh, school's stupid? So I don't have to worry about school. I don't need to turn on when you're there. Awesome. Cool. So be careful how you're talking to yourself and other people about school, and what importance you assign to it. Because the more positive you are about the learning process, the more likely your brain is to think it's important. The more you stress its importance to your brain and to other people, the more likely your brain is to perform when you get to school. So that's cool. So being relaxed is necessary in order for you to get information into your brain. If you're super uptight and super anxious, your brain is too busy worrying about stuff to focus on memorizing information. So if you want to memorize information, you have to figure out how to use, I guess, your abilities to relax and calm yourself. So we call this self-soothing. So you're going to self-regulate or self-soothe, and that is going to be something that will help serve you even after you're done with college. So let's face it, like the skills I'm giving you right now are stuff that you can use in multiple places, not just in school, but also in anything you need to memorize for anything, for any purpose, any work, job, etc. that you have. This is a skill that's going to help you. So you're stressed out, everything's overwhelming, you've got to get something done. How do you relax? Okay, so the first way is to do some deep breathing. And when I say deep breathing, I mean you're breathing deep, like all the way down in here into your stomach. So you're like let this stomach get puffed out, and then, and doing it once is not enough. You got to do a lot of deep breathing. I would say do like a few minutes of inhale, exhale. Now, if you want to even get crazier, you can add a visualization to this. that is relaxing to you. So just try to choose something or a scenario that's relaxing to you, and then imagine yourself in that scenario. So for me, I will close my eyes, I will do some deep breathing, I will imagine myself with my stepson in San Diego, throwing jellyfish back into the water. I used to live right on Bayside Walk in San Diego, and I think it was like October is jellyfish season. They wash up on the shore. So we should just try to rescue them and throw them back in. And our hands would get a little numb. And we felt really good about it. But it was a very relaxing just time of my life. It was a long time ago now. But whenever I think about that time, I just instantly feel relaxed. And that's what you want. So you want to try to think about, a time in your life where you felt most relaxed, and try to do that right before you sit down to study, and do that right before you sit down to take a test. And the other thing is, if you always do that right before you sit down to study or sit down to take a test or sit down to work on an important project, your brain will start to associate you sitting down and relaxing with prepping your mind for studying. So this is actually a great way to start every study session, with some deep breathing and a relaxation visualization. Okay, so try to do that. The other thing that helps, people relax, is to actually overlearn the information so you really know it. And the more you know, the less anxiety you're going to feel about the test. Okay, so now the next slide is on repetition. So go ahead and switch to that slide. Repetition is the best way to memorize information for any learning style, because we did talk about several different learning styles here. So you definitely want to go over something again and again and again and again before the test, but it has to be over time. You cannot do shortcuts here and really get the benefits that you're looking for. So this comes down to creating some better habits for yourself when you're studying, to study every day or every other day for all of your classes. And a lot of people are like, this is going to take forever if I do that. And the truth is, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It takes about 15 minutes per class. So that means you can do this, like if you're taking 4 classes, you could do it in an hour. And basically what you do, and I think I explained this in the notes PowerPoint as well, is you'll take a folder, like this one per se, okay? And let's say I take my notes in here. These are all my notes. So the first class that I take, I'll put my notes in here, and then I will read through those notes. And I will spend the most time reading through the most recent or newest thing that I'm putting in here. The second time I do something, I will add notes here as well. And I will start by going through the notes that I already went through. So I'll start back at the beginning and then go through those. And then I'll go through the notes that I've added. And I'll spend a little bit more time on those because those are the newest ones that I've added. Then the next time I take notes, I will go through and start again at the beginning and start again. And I'll go through my first notes and then my second notes. And then I'll spend the most time on the third set of notes. So I'll just keep doing that throughout the semester. And what you find is, so let's say I'm going to see how many notes I've actually taken in here. So I'm all the way up to here. So I've taken this many notes so far. Okay. And this is for a class I'm taking right now, okay? And so when I go through my notes, it usually takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to go through all the ones that I've already done. And it might take 4 to 5 minutes for me to go through the new one. So I'm really only spending like 10 minutes, even though it's been several weeks worth of notes. So what I'm saying is, like, the older notes start to go really fast because you've seen them so many times by that point that you have them memorized. So the more times you see them, the more your brain's going to be like, whoa, we're seeing this again. It must be important. Oh my God, again today? It must be important. So your brain will learn the importance of your notes as you study them every day, because the more your brain sees something, the more important it thinks it is. And that's why that's why they advertise the same commercial over and over again. I don't know if you guys watch YouTube, but I do. And when I watch YouTube, I notice like sometimes there'll be the same commercial over and over again throughout the, like one episode. And I'm like, why do they always play this one stupid commercial? But I know the answer. And the answer is because the more times you see that product, the more likely you are to actually purchase it if you see it like while you're out shopping. So they know this. But a lot of people don't know this, like just regular people don't realize that if they want to memorize something, all they have to do is keep presenting it to themselves over and over again, and they will eventually memorize that information. But now you know, and you guys can use this to your advantage. So let's give an example here. So there's this song that I used to really hate. Okay, it's called Hotline Bling by Drake. Okay, so when I hear that hotline bling, that can only mean one thing. Okay, I hated that song. And I just thought it was kind of dumb, personally. But at the time that I was out and on the radio, I used to do this really big haunted house every year for all of Rancho Cucamonga. And we had a commercial running on 99.1, which is a radio station that is San Bernardino. So it's also a top 40 station. So top 40 stations will play the same songs over and over again every hour. Why do they do this, guys? Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they know that you're more likely to purchase the songs that you hear on the radio if you hear them over and over again, because you're going to learn to like them. So that's what happened to me. So I started out really hating this Drake song, but I'd heard it so many times that eventually I started to sing along with the song. And my son looked at me and he's like, Mom, why are you singing this Drake song? I thought you hated it. I'm like, I do. I don't understand. And then I was like, repetition. Repetition did it. Now I have that song on a couple of my playlists. I have a cover version of it, and then I have the regular version. And I know all the words. And you know what's crazy is I actually like that song now. Yeah. So even if you hate studying, if you do this every single day, you will not only memorize the information, but you will start to like studying. Your brain will be like, cool, we get to study. We're used to this. So if you want to make it even crazier, use a regular study area. So like I usually study at my desk, which I'm sitting at right now. This is where I do most of my work. Sometimes I do work other places because I do have a laptop, but I find that I do my best work when I'm here sitting at my desk, because every time I sit down, my brain is primed to start working, because I only work when I come to my desk. So when I sit down at my desk, my brain goes, oh, we must be working, and it's on board. So if you would like to, I guess, up the ante a little bit, study in a regular study area and study at the same time every day as well. So if you study at the same time, then your brain will start to anticipate, oh, it's almost study time, and it'll start to prime your brain to get ready. So by the time you sit down to study, your brain will already be on board, right? So let's move on to the next thing, which is acronyms. So acronyms are basically when you take the first letter. Well, let me just start by saying this. So all the memorization techniques that we're going to be covering today are covering lists of information. So like if you have to memorize a list of information that has to be in the correct order, then this is for you, okay? I do have a couple of example acronyms for you from our own course materials. I have a little positive thing on my board today. Okay, look at my little checkboard. So some things that we had to memorize in class were thinking, feeling, doing, and innovating. Do you guys remember this? These were different learning styles from the Learning Styles Inventory that we took as one of the homework assignments, okay? So thinking, feeling, doing, and innovating. Now, if I wanted to create an acronym for these things, these do not have to be in any particular order. So I could put them in whatever order I want. I just need to memorize the first letter of each one of these and what it means, right? So if I take these first letters and I go, okay, there's T, F, D, and I. So I immediately think TDIF as an acronym. And even though some acronyms are really easier to say and stuff, there's an acronym that's TGIF, which is Thank God It's Friday, right? So TDIF would be easy to memorize for me. I would be able to remember this. And if I can remember TDIF, then I can remember this, because I'll be like, okay, T is for thinking, D is for doing, I is for innovating, and F is for filling. I've got this. I may not easily remember these without having this acronym there, so that's why I've got it, because it's really helpful to me. Let me see if there's another one I can, oh, I got one. So remember how we did the true colors assessment? There was gold, there was orange, green, and blue. Okay, so we have gold, orange, green, and blue, correct? Okay, so what acronym would work good? I'm seeing it right here, B-O-G-G, like a bog. So I think that would be a good acronym for true colors, bog, blue, orange, green, and gold. Or gold and green, because it doesn't matter, they're both G's. But that is how you can use acronyms. Now, if you do need the stuff to be in the right order, then the acronym would have to be in the certain order. And so I'm going to show you an example here, because we're going to be using this example throughout this lecture. So I'm just going to take a second to write this down. So I don't know if you guys have ever taken biology, but in biology there is a classification system for organisms, and every organism has these different levels of classification. So it starts with kingdom, then phylum, class, order, genus, and species. And if you're wondering how I can remember all this, it's because I have an acronym for it, and I will share that with you in just a minute. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, genus, and species. So the problem with this one with acronyms is I was trying to figure out like a good acronym for this, and I never really could. I just couldn't, because I was like, okay, because it has to be in this order. And so it would be K, sorry, my handwriting there, P-C-O-G-S, K-P-C-O-G-S, yeah. So K-P-C-O-G-S, I don't know about you guys, but I struggle to memorize this acronym. So like, it's not going to help me too much when I'm trying to remember these words that are in this particular order. If I can't remember this, how am I supposed to remember this? And so some things are actually better done with what we call creative sentences. So let's move on to the next slide, because that's what's next. Okay, we got creative sentences here. And I'm going to just erase this. Okay. So with creative sentences, what you will do is you'll take that information, and so in this case, we've got this information, kingdom, phylum, class, order, genus, species. Acronyms didn't really work here, so we're going to try using a creative sentence instead. The example that's listed in the PowerPoint is actually the order of operations for math. So those are parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and then subtraction. And you have to do every math problem kind of in that order. And if you don't, then you're not going to get the correct answer. So you have to start with any parentheses that are there, then go to exponents, then do the multiplication, then do the division, then the addition, and lastly subtraction. But if you started with subtraction, it would screw up the whole problem. So they actually do have an acronym for this, which is PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S, and that's P for parentheses, E for exponents, M for multiplication, D for division, A for addition, and S for subtraction. I don't know about you, but I could not remember that dumb acronym, PEMDAS, like for my life. I couldn't. And then somebody suggested to me, and I remember it was like in 4th grade or something, they're like, yeah, there's actually another way to memorize this. Instead of PEMDAS, you could just use a creative sentence. And I was like, oh, what creative sentence? Why didn't somebody teach me this sooner? And I think the sentence everyone used was, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And for some reason, because that actually makes sense and it's an actual sentence, and all I had to remember was just the sentence, then I could go back and be like, okay, P is for parentheses. Yes, I got this. And I could go through and do the order. And even still to this day, that's how I do my math problems if and when I have to do math problems. And by the way, there are math problems in the real world. So if you think that like you don't need math for some reason, you do. So I would say stick with it. So anyways, let's try to create an acronym with this. And I'm just going to give a quick warning right now. So I did say that some of our materials or examples for this class were going to contain words that might be offensive to some people. And this is one of those situations. So if you're offended, please fast forward through this part. So the reason why I kind of wanted to use sort of a shocking word in this is because shock helps us remember stuff. So think about the news, like what's on the news every single day. What do you usually remember most at the end after you've heard a few news stories? What do you remember? If you said you remember like the most messed up thing that happened, then you are correct. Whatever's the most shocking thing, like, oh my God, I can't believe that some guy was selling beef jerky that was made out of human flesh. That is terrible. Like, let's spread that everywhere and talk about it. So if there's something negative or something crazy or something that's just like really, different, you're more likely to remember that. The other thing we remember is funny stuff. So if it's really funny, we also remember things that are personally meaningful to us. So if it's personally meaningful to you in some way, then you're more likely to remember it. So when you're creating acronyms and creative sentences and any other stuff for memorization purposes, keep that in mind. Use shocking words. Use things that are funny that you're going to remember because they made you laugh. Incorporate celebrities into your stuff that you like and you'll remember, okay? Just try to think about like what will you remember most and put it in there, okay? So I'm not trying to shock you too much, but I do want to show you how this works. So I've got kingdom, phylum, class, order, genus, species. What I'm going to do is take the first letter, the K, P, C, O, G, and S, and I'm going to put them into a sentence in which each word in the sentence has a beginning letter that corresponds with the beginning letter in the list that we want to memorize. So the first one is kingdom. So my first part of the creative sentence is going to be king. P is going to be PH, Philip, King Philip. Then we got C for came. Order is going to be over. Oops, I forgot family. For. Okay, so now I got it. King Philip came over for group sex, or I could say great sex, or whatever I want. And a lot of my students, when I present this in class, because I've used this as an example for years, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Well, you know what? If that's going to help me memorize the information, then I'm going to put it in there. And I am more likely to remember this because it's a little bit more shocking and crazy than I am just if I put anything else. If I put like King Philip came over for grapefruit salad or something. Would I remember that? No. Would I remember group sex? Yep. Yeah. So if it's funny, shocking, crazy, sexy, just anything that like advertisers would use to market something to you, think about it that way. This is marketing for yourself, for your studies. So the more exciting it is, the more it's going to win out over other things that your brain is thinking might also be important that it needs to remember. And I can't believe I left the family out of here, so just FYI, the F should be in there. So moving on to our next one, rhymes and songs. So let's talk about that. So there's a really great example of this that I would like to share with you that blew my mind when I was doing research for this PowerPoint. And I think I did this research like maybe 5 or 6 years ago because that's how old the PowerPoint is, right? So I found this song called Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I was like, yeah, I know this from my childhood. What does this have to do with memorization? Turns out, in the olden days, kids were actually in kindergarten, or they actually went to school a little bit later than we do now. And so when they would start school, they would begin by teaching them memorization, like just how to memorize stuff. And you might have wondered why you learned a bunch of songs and stuff like that when you were in school. And it's because they wanted you to learn how to memorize. So like when you memorized a bunch of songs in school, that was the purpose. So kids were challenged to memorize a song called Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And most kids learned the song because it was fairly easy, and many of them learned to play the song on the piano or something like that as well. It's like a very common song. And some smart person along the way decided, you know, these kids are really struggling to memorize their ABCs, but they seem to know this song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So why don't I just set that song to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and we'll see if it helps them memorize the information. So I was like, mind blown, because I didn't realize. I mean, how many times have I heard both those songs? And I never realized that they're the same song. Never. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's the same song. It's genius. It's genius. So it's a genius song, but what I want you to do is take the information that you have to study for the test and create your own song. So you'll take a song that you already know. So just like they took Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and just threw out the lyrics and put in their own lyrics that have the information in the correct order that they want to remember it. And then practice the song. And if you like singing and you like, music and that kind of stuff, and you're a musically inclined person, then this might be the best way to remember information, because I still use the ABC song. I mean, like when I'm filing and I have everything in ABC order, sometimes I'm just like, where does L go? And I'm like, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. Oh, yes, there we go. Let's file it. So yeah, make a song your own. I did this with the Greek alphabet when I had to learn it for my sorority. I was in Alpha Phi, and the Greek alphabet is really complicated, but we actually took a commercial, like a song that was a commercial at that time, and we just changed the lyrics to the commercial to the Greek alphabet. And I'm going to sing it for you right now. Okay, ready? It's alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, lambda, kappa, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Okay, you can applaud. I mean, I'll take it from where you are. So use that one. Right, the next one is the PEG system. This one's really simple. It's just numbering. So just pair it with a number. And if you remember numbers really easily, then this might actually really work for you. Okay? Then we've got next the Loci. Okay, so I've heard this thing pronounced like Loci, Loci. There's another one I can't remember. I don't even know how to pronounce it now. Siri kind of scares me when she tries to pronounce it. But anyways, it's short for location. So if you just want to call this the location technique in your head to help you remember it, then that would be cool. So you use locations to store information. So you might store information in the room and be like, okay, kingdom's going to be in this corner, phylum's going to be in that corner, order's going to be back there, class is going to be over here, family's going to be over there, genus and species are going to be here. And just memorize where those are, and then you'll have it down. But a lot of people have said to me, well, Amy, how am I supposed to do that? Like if I study at home and I put stuff in a room and then I go to school and I take a test, how am I supposed to then retrieve the information? Because it's a different room. I'm like, well, you could just remember where things are in the room that you memorized it in. Or you could store it in your own body and then take it with you, and then your body is everywhere with you, so you'll never not have it. So you'd be like, kingdom's going to be in my head, phylum's going to be on my shoulder, class is going to be this head, family's going to be on this head, order's going to be on this shoulder. Okay, so you can just do that with the information, and ideally, you should be able to remember where you put it. And if you're a tactile kinesthetic person, this is supposed to be something that really works well. You could also store things in different parts of your brain and be like, okay, this is in my front part of my brain. This one's in this part of my brain. Okay, I've never done those. That's a little advanced for me, but I can do the room. All right, next we've got the connect and link method. And this is where we associate things that we're learning with things we already know. And so I'm going to throw this back up here. A lot of people like to, connect the information with a picture that represents that thing, okay? So for example, and by memorizing the pictures, they're more likely to be able to memorize the correct order. That's not me, but if you're like an artist type of person or you're a visual spatial type of person, this might be really helpful to you, okay? And that would be a visual, nonverbal, or tactile kinesthetic person for the learning styles. Okay, so kingdom, I might just put like like maybe a little, maybe that could be a crown or a castle or something like that. I'm really bad at art, sorry. Phylum, I'm gonna put like a file folder. That's really sad, but that's my file folder. Class, I'll put like a teacher, and then here's the students. She's got like a chalkboard. Yeah. Okay, so just that kind of thing. And then when you're studying, just make sure you include the picture along with the writing, so that way it jogs your memory for the picture. And if you can memorize the pictures in the right order, then you can memorize the information in the right order. You can also just do that mentally, like for mental pictures. You don't necessarily need to write it down, but for some people it's easier if you write it down and memorize it that way and then kind of put it back. You also can associate some of these things with things that you already know. So if you're sitting in a lecture and your teacher starts talking about something like, oh my God, that reminds me, we were just talking about that this weekend at, at my friend's tea party or whatever, okay? So when you connect that information with stuff you already know, your brain's like, oh my God, we already know something. This must be also important because it connects with something we already know. So we're more likely to memorize that information if we see we already have similar information stored. Okay, next we have the story method. And this is where you create a story based off of the info that you have to learn. So I've got this, and I can just tell a story. And I would say if you're going to do a story, maybe write the story down, or type the story out so you have it, and then highlight, the terms. Now what you're going to do is in the story, you're going to somehow incorporate the terms into the story into the correct order that you want to memorize that information. So for example, I'm going to do one real quick. In a kingdom far, far away, there was a tiny creature that looked like a Pokemon named Phylum. And his mom enrolled him in class for the first time, and it was his first time going to school. He wasn't sure what to do in order to fit in at school, and he asked his family, what's school like? And they said, well, you have to be a genius, or maybe it's a genius, in order to, graduate from school. But everyone in our species is actually at genius level, so it shouldn't be too hard for you, little Phylum. And that's the end, okay? So I see how I incorporated everything in the story, and it didn't have to be long. It was just a nice, brief story. And if I had written it down, then I would have all the terms there, and I could use the story to study. And then all I'd have to do is tell myself the story in my head when I'm taking the test to get that information. All right, so next we're moving on to make it meaningful. And this is really important, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, and that is if you come to class thinking that school is important to you and with a positive attitude, you are more likely to do well in class. If you come to class with a negative attitude and you're saying to yourself, oh, I don't want to go, I wish I didn't have to go to school, then you're actually priming your brain to not learn. And I think when I was in school, there was a lot of kids or a lot of students who thought going to school was not cool. That being a good student was stupid. And I noticed some of the stuff they would say, like, school is stupid, I hate school, I don't like school, I'm bad at school. They would say these things all the time, not just to themselves, but to other people. And then they would, go to school and they would wonder why it was so hard for them and why they couldn't focus and why they would get frustrated. And, as I've gotten older and I've studied a lot of psychology, what I've learned is what you say to yourself determines the importance of something. So if you're going around saying something stupid, then it's going to be stupid. If you go around saying it's not meaningful, then it's not going to be meaningful. So if you do go around saying something is meaningful, or that it's something you really want and that you want to accomplish it and that you're going to accomplish it, then you're more likely to accomplish it. So if you want to do well in school, don't say, I suck at taking notes, or my memory sucks, I'm never going to memorize this. Because when you say those things to your brain's like, okay, that must be true because we're saying it to us and we're everything. So guess I don't need to worry about memorizing this stuff right now because it's not important. If you really want to do well and you want to memorize things more easily, the best thing you could do for yourself is have a positive attitude about memorizing the information. So instead of being like, ooh, I have to do this, it would be like, I get to memorize this information. I get to learn about this stuff. I'm going to memorize this information so when I graduate, I can use it. I don't want this class to be something that I just put into my brain and then it goes out of my brain the next day. I want to actually learn it. And I'm going to do that because I'm going to incorporate this every single day into my study routine. I'm going to study for 1 hour for all my classes and go over my notes. I am going to do this and I am going to be successful because right up to now, I haven't put in my 100% effort, but now I'm ready and willing and I understand that it's meaningful and important for me to do this for myself. So something like that is going to be really powerful. Your brain is going to respond to that by actually priming itself to learn. And you may find that school becomes a lot easier just by making that simple shift in what school means to you in terms of saying that out loud to yourself or even just in your head. So you have the power to change your perspective. And you have the power to change your brain's ability to, be available and online during the learning process. Okay, lastly, cater to your learning style. So not all of these techniques are going to work for every person. And I think I mentioned that like some of them work really well for me and I use them all the time and others do not work at all. So, you got to try them all out though before you can say this one works or this one doesn't. Because I've been surprised and shocked by some of the stuff that actually does work for me that I wasn't sure if it was going to or not. Obviously for me, like the story method, I was like, yeah, that's totally going to work for me. But, I was really, really shocked when I found out like how helpful creative sentences were. I was really shocked when I actually found out about the location method, that I was able to actually use that. I don't feel like it's my best technique, but I was surprised that I could use it at all. So I would say go through this, and as you're going through the semester, use some of these learning strategies to memorize information, and especially reviewing your notes every day. If you do that, I promise you, you will notice, wow, I'm a much better student than I thought. All right. Bye, guys. I'll catch you next time.